All right, some background information to connect part 3 with part 4, which is coming up. The revolution enters its third stage. As chaos threatened the reign of terror, politicians turned to Napoleon Bonaparte, a popular military hero. The politicians planned to use him to advance their own goals. To their dismay, however, before long, Napoleon would outwit them all to become ruler of France. He would also name himself Emperor of France. So here we are, the French Revolution, Section 4, the Age of Napoleon. Revolution brings change. By 1799, the 10-year-old French Revolution has dramatically changed France. The old social order is out. The monarchy is overthrown. The church is now under state control, and the new title, citizen, applies to all people of all social classes. All other titles are eliminated. The elaborate fashions and powdered wigs gave way to the practical clothes and simple haircuts of the sans-culottes. Nationalism spreads. This is the first effect of the revolution. Revolution and war gave the French people a strong sense of national identity. Nationalism, a strong feeling of pride in and devotion to one's country. This spread throughout France. Revolutionaries push for social reform. This is the second change. Revolutionaries push for social reform and religious toleration. They set up state schools to replace religious ones and organize systems to help the poor, old soldiers, and war widows. Helping the poor, veterans, and widows of war heroes, these are social reforms. With a major slave revolt raging in the colony of St. Dominican, or Haiti, the government also abolished slavery in France's Caribbean colonies. Napoleon rises to power. A young Napoleon. He was born in Corsica, which is a French-controlled island in the Mediterranean. It's right here off the coast of Italy, but it was French-controlled. At age 9, he was sent to France to be trained for a military career. When the revolution broke out, he was an ambitious 20-year-old lieutenant, eager to make a name for himself. This is a picture of Napoleon. His rise to power. Napoleon favored the Jacobins and Republican rule. During the turmoil of the revolution, Napoleon rose quickly in the army. Success fueled Napoleon's ambition. By 1799, he moved from victorious general to a political leader. That year, he helped overthrow the weak Directory in a coup d'état. A coup d'état is a sudden overthrow of the government. He set up a 3-man governing board known as the Consulate. Another constitution was drawn up, but Napoleon soon took the title of First Consul. In 1802, he had named himself consul for life. In 1804, he crowned himself the Emperor of France. At each step on his rise to power, Napoleon had held a plebiscite or popular vote by ballot. Each time, the French strongly supported him. Napoleon restores economic prosperity by controlling prices. He encouraged new industry. He built roads and canals, which are known as infrastructure. He set up a system of public schools under strict government control to ensure well-trained officials and military officers. Made peace with the Catholic Church. in the Concordat of 1801. He kept the church under state control, however recognized religious freedoms for Catholics. Napoleon won support across class lines, which means he had support from all three estates, the first, second, and the third. He encouraged émigrés, or those emigrants that left France during the Revolution, to return, provided they take an oath of loyalty. Peasants were relieved when he recognized their right to lands they had bought from the church and nobles during the Revolution. The middle class, who had benefited most from the Revolution, approved of Napoleon's economic reforms and the restoration of order after years of chaos. Napoleon also opened jobs to all, based on talent, a popular policy among those who remembered the old aristocratic monopoly of power. So now, based on your talent or your skill, you could earn a job. It wasn't you just receiving a job because someone named you or put you in that position. Napoleon reforms France. Among Napoleon's lasting reforms was a new code of laws called the Napoleonic Code. Enlightenment principles: equality of all citizens before the law, religious toleration, and the abolition of feudalism. Women lost most of their newly gained rights and could not exercise the rights of citizenship. The men became heads of the households again. The men regained complete authority over their wives and children. Napoleon valued order and authority over individual rights. So part of the Napoleonic Code are these Enlightenment principles: equality of all citizens before the law, religious toleration, and the abolition of feudalism. However, look at this. The equality of all citizens, now women, even though they had the right to vote, have lost their rights. Napoleon builds an empire. The map of Europe is redrawn. Napoleon annexed into his empire the Netherlands, Belgium, and parts of Italy and Germany. He abolished the crumbling Holy Roman Empire, created a 38-member Confederation of the Rhine under French protection. He cut Prussian territory in half and turned the part of Old Poland into the Grand Duchy of Warsaw. His empire composed of three parts: the French Empire here in the dark orange, outlined by red. He had dependent states ruled by relatives of Napoleon. So the dependent states are the lighter orange. Here, Spain, and the Grand Duchy of Warsaw. The Allied states were defeated by Napoleon and then forced to join his army. And those are in yellow. So the Austrian Empire is here, Prussia, the Kingdom of Denmark and Norway. Napoleon strikes Britain. Of all the major European powers, Britain alone remained outside Napoleon's empire. We'll go back one slide. Here is Great Britain, or the United Kingdom, and this is a state against Napoleon, but they're also allied with Sweden, Portugal, and Russia. So back to this slide. With only a small army, Britain relied on its sea power to stop Napoleon's rise to rule the continent. Now, if you recall from 9th grade, Great Britain has the strongest naval fleet in the world. In 1805, Napoleon prepared to invade England. But at the Battle of Trafalgar, fought off the southwest coast of Spain, the British Admiral Horatio Nelson smashed the French fleet. This ruled out any invasion hopes Napoleon had. Here is a picture of the Battle of Trafalgar. Trafalgar is this bay down here off the coast of Spain and Portugal. Napoleon struck at Britain's lifeblood, its commerce. Closed European ports to British goods. Britain responded with its own blockade of European ports. This helped cause the War of 1812. So why do you think Napoleon would want Britain to go to war with the newly formed United States? In the end, Napoleon's continental system failed to bring Britain to her knees. So what we've got going on here is because Napoleon could not defeat Great Britain and its navy, Napoleon struck out at its industry, its commerce, its trade, and closed European ports to British goods. So Napoleon controlled all of this territory. He closed those ports to any British-made goods. As a response, Britain responded with its own blockade of European ports. And it helped cause the War of 1812. Why would this be? If Great Britain can't sell their goods and trade with all of these European countries, and now it's also stopped bringing in any trade or commerce from these countries, then the only place that it has to look to is the newly formed United States, its former colonies. So Great Britain tries to regain control of the 13 colonies from the United States in order to try to salvage its commerce and economy. Why would Napoleon want Great Britain to go to war with the United States? That's going to be one of your questions in the Ed puzzle. Napoleon's empire faces challenges. Nationalism here works against Napoleon. Nationalism spurred French armies to success. It worked against them too. Saw Napoleon and his armies as foreign oppressors. Other European powers resented the continental system and the effort to impose French culture on them. From Rome to Madrid, Rome is in Italy, Madrid is in Spain, to the Netherlands, nationalism unleashed revolts against France. Napoleon's empire faces challenges continued. The Russian winter presents a problem. Tsar Nicholas I of Russia was once an ally of Napoleon. They planned to divide Europe if Alexander helped Napoleon in his continental system. Russia became unhappy with the economic effects of this system. And Napoleon also had enlarged the Grand Duchy of Warsaw that bordered Russia on the west. These issues led to the Tsar to withdraw his support from the continental system. All this leads to war with Russia. Napoleon falls from power. Napoleon abdicated briefly. In 1814, Napoleon abdicated or stepped down from power. He was exiled to Elba, an island in the Mediterranean. It's here marked by this red star. The victors recognized Louis XVIII, brother of Louis XVI, as King of France. The restoration of Louis XVIII did not go well. An economic depression and the fear of a return to the old regime helped rekindle loyalty to Napoleon. As the Allies gathered in Vienna for a general peace conference, Vienna is in Austria, Napoleon escaped his island exile and returned to France. Soldiers flocked to his banner, which means they supported him. As citizens cheered Napoleon's advance, Louis XVIII fled. In March 1815, Napoleon entered Paris in triumph. So Napoleon